Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. There is great news tonight. The pandemic, as we know it, is largely, if not entirely, behind us. But in many cities and states across the country, you wouldn't know it. On my flight this weekend, the flight attendants were gleeful in their strict enforcement of the mask mandate. Why is there no one telling us the plan to end the pandemic state? First, the facts. And as usually, they are undisputed. As a healthy adult who gets the vaccine, the chance of death by COVID is statistically insignificant. Pfizer, 95% effective. Moderna, 90%. Johnson & Johnson, 72% against serious illness. And that's before the booster shots, which only increase your immunity. Is there a chance you get a breakthrough case? Sure. And the vast majority of those are either asymptomatic, meaning you don't feel anything, or very mild. The chance of dying from COVID after vaccination is 0.00001%. That's 4 zeros. In fact, roughly 3 times as many pedestrians died in 2020 from being hit by a car than vaccinated people have died of COVID. The number that died of COVID include, of course, those already near death from other diseases and with suppressed immune systems. That makes your chance as a healthy adult even better. Last time I checked, mayors of major cities haven't ordered pedestrians to walk around wearing inflatable vests on the streets to protect them against a collision. Now for the unvaccinated, a group which I personally find curious, but certainly well within their rights. If you choose not to get the vaccine but contract COVID, new antivirals are remarkably helpful.
That completely renders the medical case for a mandate obsolete. 2 of the drugs cut COVID deaths to 0.
COVID deaths to 0. Not only deaths, but hospitalizations. Pfizer's 89% effective in high-risk individuals. It's reasonable to think that number will be even higher, meaning even more effective in people who are at low risk and get breakthrough cases. Merck and Ridgeback's biotherapeutics, 50% effective. As for children, of the 73 million children in America, fewer than 700 have died of COVID-19 during the course of the pandemic. Remember, many of those were already sick and immunocompromised before contracting COVID. Despite the overwhelming statistical evidence that you are not going to die of COVID, there is a strange desire among some to have a almost perpetual pandemic. ABC News tweeted a few days ago, "It's time to take a deep breath, tap the brakes, continue using your mask indoors, and not re-engage with large crowds just yet." I said that a couple of weeks ago. That was about a story related to those who had already had their booster shots, a group statistically bulletproof from COVID. And the CDC director went a step further, hinting masks might never be over.
Masks can help prevent the spread of COVID-19 by reducing your chance of infection by more than 80%. Whether it's an infection from the flu, from the coronavirus, or even just the common cold.
Again, why? Where's the goalpost that once passed we can live without the mask police? The virus will probably never really end. But is there a time that the experts are going to blow the whistle on living this crazy life and let us make our own decisions like we do during flu season and have during flu seasons for decades? It's kind of easy to forget, but I'll take you back to 2020. And do you remember that age-old saying that we all started to use? 2 weeks, just 2 weeks to slow the spread.
Stopping the spread of this virus.
To slow the spread of COVID.
To address the spread of the virus.
We need to stop the spread of this virus.
To start to slow again the spread of this virus.
We have had those 2 weeks 35 times. It appears there's an attempt to manage to 0, kind of like banning cars to protect the pedestrians we talked about. There's a way to do that. Here's the photograph of evidence of what it looks like. I guess we didn't get the picture, but Shanghai Disneyland shut down and 30,000 people were tested after just 1 COVID case. The people in their hazmat suits shutting down Disneyland was terrifying. Happened in China. Ronald Reagan said a government program is the closest thing on earth to eternal life. That quote is often cited by a good friend of mine, George Will, author of American Happiness and Discontents, joins us now. Mr. Will, good to see you, sir. As always, considering that the programs the pandemic created are here, are we now in the idea of an eternal pandemic?
I'm just waiting for Dr. Fauci to furrow his brow and stroke his chin and decide whether or not we can have Christmas. As someone has said, with Fauci, it's always winter, but never Christmas. I think we know what's going to happen. The pandemic is going to be over when COVID-19 becomes endemic. That is like the seasonal flu, dangerous but not raging, and we'll get on with our lives. There are some Americans who are kind of enjoying the pandemic, I have to say. There are those in power who wield power, like to tell people what to do, and there are an alarming number of Americans who I think like being regimented. They like being told what to do. But this is going to end in a way that the war on terror is going to end. Remember when it all started with 9/11? We were warned, and we were rightly warned, that this is not going to be like World War II, where there'll be a decisive battle, a decisive end, and a signing ceremony on the deck of the battleship Missouri in Tokyo Bay. But terrorism would be slowly suppressed and made marginal and something you have to live with, just as Israel has lived with it for years. So it does seem to me that the American people have now learned a lesson. In 1953, the Salk vaccine came along and really ended the polio epidemic that had been the terror of American parents for years. And Americans, I think, at that time said, well, that's good. We're done with worrying about infectious diseases. That's why in the early 1980s, when the AIDS epidemic came along, Americans were so shocked. We thought we were done with this kind of thing. Well, the history of the human race is a history of a lot of wars, endless wars, and endless pandemics. So we have to be a little more mature about this. But I think we ought to take great pride and solace from the following. When AIDS came along, it took 4 years to identify the virus. It took a matter of weeks before Big Pharma, so often criticized, identified this virus and gave us a vaccine. So we've learned, that's what you do in crises. You go through them, you suffer a bit, but you also learn.
Well, it seems as though what we've learned, though, at least so far, is that from a certain group of people, the goalposts tend to always keep moving. As you mentioned, Dr. Fauci, here he is.
You'll need about 70%, maybe 75% of the people in the country vaccinating to get that umbrella of herd immunity.
He's always right until he is proven wrong, often quickly. But it gets us back to this idea. Why the constant moving goalposts of what will get us out of this?
Well, again, what we need is a mature understanding of what getting out of this means. Getting out of this is not zero COVID. If you pursue zero COVID, you become fanatical about it. And we'll never take our masks off, and we'll never see grandmother at Thanksgiving. The American people I think, have a more balanced understanding of this. We live with the flu every season. We get our flu shots. Every season, the flu kills thousands of people. It's a tragedy, but it's a fact of life. And it's something you try to mitigate the dangers, but you don't let your life be turned upside down by a regularly recurring difficulty.
Now, you made a point about that there's people who enjoy the constant state of emergency. They derive power from it. Is there a political group that benefits from it? And if so, what do they extract before there is a political gain from then declaring the pandemic over?
Well, I don't think they really want to get past the goal line on this. The people in power who are issuing the orders are in power because they like issuing orders. There are a lot of people who go into politics for the thrill of bossing people about. And frankly, there are people at the other end, on the receiving end of this power, who don't mind being bossed about. Franklin Roosevelt said in his first inaugural address, we have to march like an army. We have to be like a nation invaded in dealing with the Depression. Some people like that. That's why presidents are forever declaring war on drugs, war on poverty, war on cancer, war, regimentation, people taking orders, commands from the top. Well, we really don't want to live in a society that is on a war footing about something forever.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. And also, when you declare a war, then anyone who is not on board with the war becomes somehow unpatriotic, or if they question the war, they're not in it with all of us. Excellent points. Good to see you, sir, as always. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Democrats have been duking it out over their massive spending bill, both the one they passed and now the one they want to pass. Progressives and moderates are at each other's throats in the Democratic Party. Republicans should be popping the popcorn on the sidelines, but the Republicans in Washington just can't seem to help themselves. GOP leaders are reportedly bracing for an effort among the rank and file to strip the 13 House Republicans who voted for the infrastructure bill of their committee assignments. Former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is among those pushing for that to happen. And just a couple of days ago, former President Trump said Glenn Youngkin would have lost by 15 points in Virginia without his base support. Now Trump strongly hinted he plans to run against President Biden again. That was in comments to his supporters at Mar-a-Lago. You think I kid, but I'm not. Phil Wegmann wrote that piece, RealClearPolitics White House correspondent. Good to see you, Phil. Thanks for joining us. All right. It seems as though is it too early, I guess would be the right way to say, to call this a civil war inside the Republican Party?
Well, we've been talking about civil wars for so long that I think we might have to come up with a new term. I think the closest thing that we can get to that is that President Trump is continuing a will he, won't he routine. We don't know if he is going to run for president. Certainly, he has a big pile of cash. He's got the support of base conservatives. But standard operating procedure for any Republican with their own White House ambitions has to be, at this point, to assume that he's going to run again in 2024.
You obviously have some great sources who you talked to down at Mar-a-Lago who heard this. How much of this was a cry for relevancy by the former president?
Yeah, it's a fair question. President Trump was down there talking to the think tank America First Policy Institute, which is the brain trust of some of his former top aides and advisors. I think some of this was playing to the crowd, certainly. This is a former president who loves to be braggadocious. At the same time, Trump saw what happened in Virginia, and he reads that as vindication for his sort of culture war arguments. He thinks that he lost the last presidential election, unfairly in his mind. But his thought here is, look, Republicans are finally taking the playbook that I told them to advance, and look at Biden's approval numbers. I could totally beat that guy. That's at least what's going on in his mind right now.
Yeah, it was described to me as someone who knows the former president really well, MAGA without the crazy, which is what was embraced in Virginia. This is also what the president had to say, not your reporting. Trump rebukes Chris Christie for saying GOP needs to move on. Everybody remembers that Chris left New Jersey with less than a 9% approval rating, a record low, and Republicans didn't want to hear this from him. It brings up a really interesting point, at least for Democrats that I talk to, almost think that they can goad President Trump into saying things that will be inflammatory, that will then help them and provide the foil that Terry McAuliffe didn't have in Virginia.
Absolutely. If we learned anything from Virginia, it's that Democrats really like running against Donald Trump. And in fact, they might have overreached when they tried to paint Glenn Youngkin as a Trump-like person who's just taller and wears a fleece vest. It clearly didn't win there. You were able to have Youngkin make sort of some of these conservative populist arguments about education and other things without the populist baggage that Trump brings along. But if the former president decides, like he has hinted at, that he's going to get back in the race, well, then all of those former ads that Democrats cut over the last 4 years, all of the fears that they sort of stoked about his return, well, they just have to dust those off and run them again during the midterms.
Yeah, especially if he's trying to make a return in the media, which the media would love covering him because it gives us something to talk about every day. Back to this fight now, you might even call it perpetual conflict inside the Republican Party. Here's Senator Hagerty about those 13 Republicans. Take a listen.
It was very surprising to me to see 13 Republicans basically bail Nancy Pelosi out. She did not have the votes within her own party to do this. I think what they did was put themselves on a path to early retirement.
President Trump has proven to be so-so in his record in general elections. In primaries, he is quite effective. Adam Kinzinger is retiring. A couple of these folks, though, are not. How worried are they about primary challenges?
They're very worried. We're going to see what the National Republican Congressional Committee does to these folks for balking party leadership. But you've got to expect that some of these outside conservative groups, like the Heritage Foundations, the Heritage Action, or Club for Growth, or others, are going to try and hold these guys accountable. And what we heard from Haggerty and from other conservatives like Senator Ted Cruz is those guys they are making the argument that by crossing party lines, balking leadership, that by voting for the infrastructure package, that those Republicans gave Biden a win and helped him keep the reconciliation package alive. So if you're an outside conservative group, those guys are at the top of your list to go after.
Yeah, and certainly the attack ads certainly write themselves. So we're going to see that. We're going to see that full screen of Republicans who voted for it a number of times over the next 12 months. Phil, good to see you as always, my friend. Coming up,
thank you, sir.
We're going to speak to a vaccinated teacher speaking out against vaccine mandates, why she lost her job, and the Kyle Rittenhouse trial underway in Wisconsin. He shot and killed 2 people. What happens if he gets off? Welcome back. The defense started its case today in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, a teenager accused of killing 2 and injuring a 3rd during riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. Legal experts say an acquittal now actually appears more likely. He traveled to Kenosha to defend businesses from days of looting and burning, armed with an assault rifle, and claims he acted in self-defense when rioters lunged at him and one person drew a weapon. Kellie Beeson in Kenosha, Wisconsin, ahead of Rittenhouse possibly taking the stand tomorrow. Hi, Kellie.
Hey, Leland, that's right. That is what we are hearing. The defense has said Kyle Rittenhouse will testify. However, we have not been able to confirm an exact time. In terms of the trial progression today, though, there was some new drone video that was shown to the jury. This is apparently some of the clearest video of that first shooting. It was slowed down. It was zoomed in to show Kyle Rittenhouse shooting Joseph Rosenbaum. And today, there was a forensic pathologist who testified that Rosenbaum had soot injuries that could indicate his hand may have been over the barrel of Rittenhouse's rifle.
There is no soot stippling here, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. The bulk of it starts between what would be the ring and commonly referred to as middle finger?
Yes.
Okay, so that means the barrel of the gun, if not touching, would have been like this.
It's in that location, that's correct.
So that hand was over the barrel of Mr. Rittenhouse's gun when his hand was shot.
That makes sense.
Now, the doctor went on to say that it was unclear from this video footage whether Rosenbaum was attempting to grab the rifle or swat it away. Kyle Rittenhouse now faces life in prison if convicted of the most serious charge, which is first-degree intentional homicide. Leland?
Hey, Kellie, thank you. We'll check in as the trial continues. We bring in Ethan Bearman, attorney and talk show host, who's following this case closely. All right, Ethan, we had reasonable doubt yet?
Well, I think there's reasonable doubt on the at least one of the killings, and I think that there's reasonable doubt on the I can't remember his name now right this moment. The other gentleman that testified yesterday, I think that there's reasonable doubt. I think the drone footage today is actually very damaging, and that's the first-degree reckless homicide charge for the killing of Joseph Rosenbaum. That grabbing of the gun actually, remember, happened after the shooting of other people. And Mr. Rosenbaum had no weapon of his own. So that changes the nexus for Kyle Rittenhouse here. I think that's the one charge that the defense needs to be very worried about.
Yeah, I think it's Gage Grosskreutz, who was the fellow who said and admitted that he pointed a gun at Rittenhouse before he was fired upon. This is not exactly legal, but it sort of goes to the psychology of the jury. How much of the fact that this is a 17-year-old kid who drives an hour with an assault rifle into what had become an urban war zone, for lack of a better term, as these riots went on, and the jury going, what was he doing there?
Yeah, so this is going to come down to each side, the prosecutors and the defense, arguing their side with the judge for the jury instructions. And of course, jurors are human beings, they're people, so they have emotions about this. And I think that hurts Kyle Rittenhouse. But, it's really going to come down to how the judge explains what exactly they're supposed to consider when they look at the evidence, which again is on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and we're going to also have to see what happens there in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We understood what happened after the shooting of a black man who lunged for a gun. There were riots and burnings. You have to think about what might happen if Rittenhouse is acquitted on a number of these charges. Ethan, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Leland.
The empty shelves crisis has hit another sector. Why fresh venison might be hard to come by this winter. Prices are increasing at your local grocery store. All right. So what is this going to mean for pumpkin pie and turkey? A new Israeli defense system might soon protect U.S. troops in the South Pacific. The Wall Street Journal reports Israel's Iron Dome is going to deploy to Guam to protect the bases there from an attack possibly by China. Yesterday, we showed you how the Chinese military was playing a real-life game of battleship as they built mock-ups of U.S. carriers mounted on rail tracks so they could test new missiles that they're developing on moving or simulated moving ships. Kellie Meyer joining us from D.C. with what the Iron Dome can do. Hi, Kellie.
Hey, Leland. Well, the Iron Dome can intercept and destroy rockets from up to 40 miles away. Israel used this system to intercept more than 1,500 missiles from the Gaza Strip last spring. The dome can only protect against certain kinds of missiles, and China has better capabilities than what we saw from the Palestinians. So as the Pentagon mentioned yesterday, they are beefing up their defenses. Congress ordered 2 of these Iron Dome systems for about $373 million back in 2019, and they required that they be deployed by the end of this year. Currently, there are no plans to conduct live firing from Guam.
Yeah, as you very rightly point out, Kellie, the difference between a Hamas missile and a Chinese missile is significant. Thank you very much. We'll follow it. Tomorrow, Wall Street gets the latest inflation numbers. Many Americans are cutting back on meat as inflation causes prices to rise. You already know what inflation is. It hits you in the pocketbook every day. Meat is up 40% from a year ago. Food makers say this increase is due to a rise in transportation and labor costs. You can see there, bacon up more than $1, beef roast up $1.50, uncooked steak up almost $1.70. Chicken about the same. The Biden administration says meatpacking companies are just price gouging. Experts say it's going to likely remain high until staffing issues are fixed, which may not be until sometime next year. Easy for prices to go up, hard for them to go down. We bring in Barbara Eastman, owner of Happy Foods grocery store, Rick Berman, former labor lawyer for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, former executive vice president of public affairs for the Pillsbury Restaurant Group. Appreciate both of you being here. Barbara, start with you. Are consumers already starting to make choices because of the prices?
Yes, they are. They're going more for the, like our private brands and things like that, because actually it's a supply issue chain with, the problem with the chain is that we're not getting the product in. So they have to actually pick and choose what they're going to have.
Wow. All right. Rick, this is how the Biden administration goes after this. We understand that you are obviously pretty close with the meat industry. The Biden administration continues to blame the rising prices on 4 major meat packing companies: Cargill, Tyson's Food, JBS SA, and National Beef Packaging, which controls 80% of meat in the country. The meat processors are generating record profits during the pandemic at the expense of consumers, farmers, and ranchers. From a White House press release. Response.
Off base in a nutshell. The price of beef is as high as it is for a lot of reasons, starting with the drought in the West. Feed prices have gone through the roof. Corn and soybean prices are way up. If you want to add any blame to it, the Biden administration, which is suggesting that there isn't going to be very much fracking going on, and therefore natural gas prices are rising dramatically. Natural gas prices are a huge component of fertilizer, which is used for corn and soybeans. And so what you've really got here are cattle that are coming to market about 15% smaller than they have been in the past, because the drought means that grazing lands are much worse. You go to a feedlot, the feedlot prices are going up. Then, of course, you've got a lot of people with more money than they've ever had, and they haven't been going out. Entertainment costs are down. People are going to grocery stores, they're eating better, and there's a bigger demand for meat. And then go all the way back to COVID. And you've got fewer people who are willing to work in plants. The plants have had to change their production methods. People have to stand further apart from each other. That has created inefficiencies. They've got about a 20% fall off in people showing up for work.
Well, a tour de force of why meat prices are higher by Rick Berman. Barbara, I got to ask you, though, are we at the point where we're at shortages or just higher prices?
It's both.
And Rick made the point that people have a lot more money, so there is inflation going on, but people are spending more. Have you gotten to the point where some of your customers, though, are saying, I'm having to make difficult choices for my family?
No, not at that point. They're actually spending the money. They're paying the price for it. But part of the problem, too, is that when you talk, what Mr. Berman said, it's the price of fuel. We all get fuel charges tacked onto every bill, and that goes to the consumer. They're making probably smaller choices as far as they're not buying a bigger steak or anything like that, but they are making a few choices.
You know, Barbara, I'm thinking about for you, and we're happy to have you, Happy Foods grocery store, not a household name, not one of the big groups. Is it a lot harder? Is it different for you guys than for the Safeways and the Walmarts and the Targets, the huge grocers?
Of course. I mean, as a small grocer, we don't get the buy-ins like they do. They buy big, and of course, like even now with the Christmas holidays and and Thanksgiving coming up, everything is allocated. So as a small store, we get smaller allocations.
Hey, Rick, I only got about 30 seconds, but where is the tipping point between rising prices and real shortages and problems?
Well, actually, the real shortages may have yet to be seen. You know, when Biden put in this mandate that all federal employees are going to have a COVID shot, and they're now predicting that 1 million people are not going to go to work just over that one mandate issue. Well, some of those people are going to be the federal meat inspectors in those plants that you were talking about. So if those people stop showing up for work, then production gets slowed even further, and then the supply gets dropped, and the prices are going to go up. I don't see any way out of this, because the price of fertilizer and the price of corn and soybeans, they're still going up.
Yeah, no, for sure. Barbara, you mentioned fuel prices. The other place fuel prices affect people is just how much money they have to spend. At what point are people going to stop being able to absorb the increase in prices and have to start making decisions?
Probably when they fill their gas tanks up to go to the store, they're going to have fewer times that they come to us. And that's what we rely on, is the people coming in and shopping.
Wow. All right. Thank you both. Barbara, Rick, good to see you. We appreciate it. Thank you both. Fuel prices that Barbara was talking about and Rick mentioned is exactly where we're headed now. Gas prices have hit a new high, an average now of $3.41 a gallon nationally, along with higher costs are on the way for Americans to heat their homes this winter. Experts warn the Biden administration is going to shut down an oil pipeline from Michigan to Canada. Experts say don't do that because it would only send prices higher. The White House today has denied it has plans, but there is a study on the environmental impact of replacing the pipeline, and Canada's not so happy about this as well. Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, well, she wants the current pipeline shut down, citing environmental concerns. The White House today played real defense.
Would a possible outcome from that study be, a choice that limits output? And also, what's the timeline for that study?
I don't have a timeline on the study. Again, this is the Army Corps of Engineers who are taking this under. I don't have anything more to share.
Republican Congressman Bob Latta of Ohio just wrote a letter to President Biden explaining why shutting down the pipeline while we head into a winter when rising fuel prices is a bad idea. Joins us now. Congressman, we appreciate it. Take us through. The pipeline shuts down. What happens?
Well, you're talking about a pipeline that carries about 540,000 barrels of product a day. And this is something, again, as you mentioned, we have a treaty with Canada from 1953. It goes through Michigan, through the Upper Peninsula, down to the Lower Peninsula, and into Ohio. It could affect our refineries. It would affect our refineries here in Ohio and in Michigan, tens of thousands of jobs. And we all know that using a pipeline is a much safer way to transport the product than by truck. And, what would happen is what we saw back in 2014 when we had the polar vortex on the propane shortage, that we had propane in the country. You just had no way to get it where we needed to have it because, again, we need pipelines. Yeah. And so, this is serious. And we already know what the president did with the Keystone XL at the beginning of the year. That's 840,000 barrels. And at the same time, they the Nord Stream 2 with Russian gas coming into Europe. Yeah. So, they have everything backwards.
Yeah, the canceling Keystone and allowing Nord Stream was quite the logical jujitsu, I guess you could say. This would be an interesting question, though. Winter heating bills loom as next inflation threat. That's from the New York Times in terms of what might happen to heating costs. After plunging during the pandemic as the economy slowed, energy prices have roared upward. Washington is already moving to offer homeowners relief. The governor of Michigan says essentially, like, look, this is an environmental hazard. The prices be damned.
Well, and that's, again, she's totally wrong. This pipeline has been in operation for decades. And at the same time, they want to put a new tunnel in to put an even deeper under the lake. And so to make it even safer. But, if you're out there saying that we're going to shut down this pipeline and have the exact same thing happen that we had, across the country, we can't get product. Just in your earlier segment about farmers, I represent the largest farming producing district in the state, and I have 86,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have got to heat, dry their grain, and they use that fuel to do that. And and when it gets to be a cold winter and all winter long, they've got to make sure that they keep their livestock alive, which is their livelihood. So everything that this administration has been doing is wrong. They don't admit that from 2005.
Hey, Congressman, I got to run. I got about 20 seconds. You get anything back from your letter that you wrote?
Not yet, and we want to hear from the White House. But we're listening to the Secretary of Energy, Granholm. She pretty much scoffs off that we have a problem out there about rising prices.
She laughed in one reporter's face when they asked about rising gas prices.
Absolutely.
What you would do about it. Congressman, we appreciate you taking the time tonight, sir. Good to see you.
Well, thanks very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. NewsNation's Brian Entin just spoke to a security guard who worked the Astroworld concert. The troubling protocols or lack thereof that he said led to the deaths of 8 people. The story keeps getting stranger and sadder. A security guard who was at the deadly concert at Houston's Astroworld says organizers were not prepared for a crowd to surge. The FBI is now investigating what protocols, if any, were in place to keep concertgoers safe. Obviously, concertgoers were not kept safe. 8 died. NewsNation correspondent Brian Entin live in Houston. And you think about it, the front man who was up there, Travis Scott, he's had problems with crowds before and inciting them. You've got 8 people dead. Is he going to face any charges?
Well, and Leland, he encourages people to rage. That's what he calls it. He tells the crowd to rage. He's encouraged people to storm over security fences in the past. So yes, it's possible there is this criminal investigation that is ongoing. The FBI is involved, but it goes much deeper than just Travis Scott. You have Live Nation and all of these contractors that were running this massive event and these security companies that were hiring people. It was shocking. We learned today that literally have no experience. We spoke to this one security guard. Not only has he never done security at a concert, he said he'd actually never even been to a concert before. Listen to what he told us. So wait, so you show up, they don't ask for your ID, they don't ask for any certification, and they just hand you the uniform?
They didn't even ask for a phone number. But see,
they know your name?
They know my name.
Respectfully, do you feel like you were qualified for this situation?
I do. I don't believe I was prepared.
You don't think you were prepared?
I was qualified because I believe that if we were all prepared the right way, that stuff wouldn't have happened the way it did.
So this man, Leland, super nice guy. He's a manager at an auto detailing place during the day. Says he basically just showed up here with his uncle, lined up with 200 other people, never checked his ID, never checked his qualifications, barely knew his name, didn't know his phone number, and he ended up working the event and being right up front along the stage where all of this chaos happened.
Paired may be the best sum up of what happened there. Fabulous reporting, Brian, as usual. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. As discussed, the pandemic as we know it is either over or nearly over. As a healthy adult, and certainly as a healthy child, your chance of dying is infinitesimal from COVID. But that hasn't stopped states and the federal government from plowing ahead with vaccine mandates and terminating employees who refuse. Cadence Cohen is a teacher in Southern Illinois who defied the mandate and now on unpaid leave. She joins us now. What I'm fascinated by is that you're on unpaid leave, but you're also vaccinated. How does that work?
About a month ago, they asked for vaccination cards or weekly testing, and I am very against the mandate. So at that point in time, I did not produce a vaccination card. So the district was unaware that I was vaccinated. So that's when they placed me on unpaid leave.
All right. So you said it was either vaccination or testing. Did they not want you to be tested?
No, I could have opted for the testing option.
But you chose not to?
I did. I don't believe that it's my boss's business to get into my medical life. Okay. And the testing is also illogical to me, given that vaccinated people can spread COVID. So only testing the unvaccinated. There's 150 people, students that are high school students, in and out of my room every day, and only requiring the testing of one person that goes in and out of the room didn't make much sense to me.
When you think about this vaccination mandate, does it seem to you is about punishment and power or genuine concern and protection for the students?
I would like to believe that it's genuine concern for the students and the other faculty at the building, but given the statistics and the lack of logic behind it, I have trouble believing that.
So what form of mandate or protection would you be okay with? If they said we're going to test every student and test all the faculty, then you would have been okay with it?
I'm not okay with any mandates. I'm okay with laws that go through our legislature, but I'm not okay with one man making any sort of mandate, whether it's a medical mandate or a business mandate.
So now that you're on unpaid leave, as I understand it, you uploaded your vaccine card.
I did last Friday.
And why are you still on unpaid leave?
Well, I have to be punished.
You have to be punished for not having uploaded your vaccine card?
Insubordination, yes.
So how long are you going to be punished for?
I've been on unpaid leave since the end of September, and I will stay that way until November 17th.
And what's been happening to all your students who like coming to Mrs. Cohen's class?
They've had 2 different substitute teachers in there that have been doing the best they can, but they are not certified business teachers, so obviously that's a little bit difficult. The head of the business department at the school is a wonderful woman, and the workload on her has been doubled since I've been gone.
Real quick, have you heard from any of your students or their parents?
Of course I have.
Okay.
I get messages and emails daily. We miss you, and when are you coming back?
All right. Well, November 17th it is, and admire you for standing on principle, Mrs. Cohen. Great example for your students.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's deer hunting season in many parts of the United States, but hunters are having a very hard time finding ammo. What this means for the empty shelves crisis when we come back. Welcome back. The middle of November marks a rite of passage for millions of Americans as they head out for deer season. Not a hunter myself, but it is as much a part of life to many Americans as apple pie. And this year, it is near impossible to find the ammunition for hunting. Might be a good thing for the deer, but also emblematic of the empty shelves crisis on steroids. With that, we bring in Dan Marcon. He owns Mark On Shooting, Lake Hallie, Wisconsin, where this is a serious problem. Dan, good to see you. November 20th is deer season. You guys gonna have ammunition?
Boy, I don't know. I've been working on this for about 6 months trying to get good ammo. yesterday I got 3 boxes, and it was almost a riot, if you would, when I posted it on Facebook.
Well, riots in gun stores aren't good things, but when you say post it on Facebook, three boxes, normally how many boxes could you get on a given shipment?
On any given time for the last 6 years, I've been in business now 6 years, this is the worst I've seen it. We've had 20 to 120 boxes of anywhere between 308, 30-06, 30-30, any of the common hunting ammo is readily available. I mean, usually I have plenty of it afterwards, and I haven't seen any of it since basically August.
What's the issue? Is it a shortage? Are people hoarding it? Is it not being manufactured?
It's not being manufactured right now with the whole COVID scamdemic thing going on. They shut down plants, they shut down shipping. They have the products that come from overseas that make the ammunition, the primers, the glue, all that stuff that holds it together. Over the past several, if you would, presidencies, everything's went offshore. So then all of a sudden, like I said, this COVID thing hits and everybody's, shortages on everything. And now that this administration just hosed it with not putting stuff back to normal. I mean, we were doing really great 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
When you say you can't get any ammunition, is that shoot pistol ammunition, anything and everything?
So since this whole country's been burning down the last 2 years now, it's been nuts. We have not had 9mm ammunition on the shelves at all. And I just got this summer, I put my money into brass and lead and gunpowder that was in the bank, invested it for the people of Wisconsin where I'm at, so they could do that. I have over 250,000 rounds of 9mm ammunition in-house right now. It's better to have ammunition and guns on the shelf than it is to have money in the bank right now. That's my philosophy.
When you say you invested it, so this was money that you had in savings that you then went out when you used to buy inventory. Are people now buying that?
They are. A lot of places in the country that that are watching you right now, they might have 4 or 5 boxes of 9mm on their shelf, and that's a lot at that place, or 4 or 5 cases. I buy it by the 50,000 round pallets from people that I am hooked up with across the country.
All right, so why is it that you can buy, and I know for gun owners this is a huge issue, but it's emblematic of what's happening. Why can you buy 50,000 round pallets of 9mm and you can't get any hunting ammunition?
So everybody's buying 9mm handguns across the country. They make them in rifles, they make them in pistol caliber carbines, they make them in handguns. That's a huge self-defense round and carry round. That's what everyone wants to carry. And it's a NATO round, so they're using it overseas as well. 30-06, 270, 30-30, the hunting round, there's only 100,000 rounds that are sold a year. So why redo our whole line of product?
It's why you can't find orange Gatorade, but you can find tons of yellow Gatorade. It's fascinating, and what it means for rural America is sad. Hey, great to see you, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate the insights. Mark on shooting in Lake Hallie, Wisconsin. Dan Abrams is next. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.